One of the major gaps in our anti-discrimination law has to do with class, right? So this country has just not dealt with class as an anti-discrimination category in any robust way. So either we have to get class included among, the constitutional and the statutory protections we have against state and employer-based discrimination. Don't hold your breath, right? Or we have to understand that many of the problems that we're dealing with are not going to be redressable through law. So whenever I give this talk, I've come to expect this kind of question, which I think of as like the straight white guy question, where somebody raises their hand and says, I understand why you should be protected for things you can't help, like your skin color, your chromosomes, or your sexual orientation if that's innate, but why shouldn't you have to cover? Because I have to cover all the time. I have to cover my depression, or I have to cover the fact that I was a survivor of abuse, or I have to cover my illiteracy, or even a positive attribute like the fact that I'm an artist. One thing that comes up again and again, Larry, is that I have to cover the fact that I'm working class. And because this person continues, I don't fall into the canon of protected classifications, I'm simply viewed as like an impediment to the civil rights of other people rather than somebody who might have a civil rights claim of my own. And I absolutely agree with them. I think I surprise them when I agree that these other identities are just as worthy of our solicitude in the cultural realm. And I'm not saying, to be clear, that discrimination against poets is the same as discrimination against African Americans, but I am saying that the project of civil rights for me has always been the project of allowing ourselves to pursue our human flourishing as human beings without limitations based on bias or witless conformity. And when we deal with the class issue, this phenomenon has been very well documented, which is that individuals rise from the working class into the middle class, and they're kind of caught in a limbo, which is, I guess, the title of this book.
His name was Lubrano, Alfred Lubrano.
And it's a really poignant experience because it either requires you, which many people do, to engage in the kind of code switching, right, where you are one person in one context and immediately toggle back to being something else in another context, or it requires you to be one kind of person who doesn't fit quite neatly into either context, and I think that's a limbo that you're describing.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.